So we like the simulation quality of our hoodie, but it's still in a simulation state in terms of being a model. And now we need to transition away from that into a final model state. Like, of course, actually stitching together the seams rather than leaving a gap the way it is now. And so this process is very step-by-step, and it's actually important that you follow step-by-step, or else it's going to be messier than it needs to be. And so first thing is we have this blue line, which represents a simulation cache, and we want to convert this from a simulation cloth into a shape key. So let's turn on my overlays, select our cloth object. Remember to make sure you find a frame that you like. In this case, frame 62 is what I like. And if we go to our modifiers, in the cloth modifier, we have the option to apply as a shape key. We're going to press that. Now we lose the cloth settings. It's no longer a cloth object, but in the object data, we have a new shape key. If we turn that on, it's our simulated hoodie. Now, the next step, we're going to tab into edit mode with the basis shape selected. I'm also going to turn off our other modifiers just for visual clarity. And when you tab into edit mode on each shape, the basis is how the simulation started, the panels individually, and in the cloth is the simulated version. And so I want to make sure to select the basis so we get our individual panels. And I'm going to select everything and jump over to UV editing, because this is a great and rare opportunity to lay out perfect UVs before we progress in the modeling process. And it's going to be ideally perfect to lay them out now rather than later. So with everything selected, I'll hit U in the 3D view and choose Unwrap. And I said rare, this might be one of the only times, unless you're unwrapping a cube, where we get absolutely perfect UVs. Completely blue, because each panel is flat. And this is ideal because the way we're going to texture the clothing is the same way they make the clothing. So this is an ideal process. So now that we've laid out UVs, we can kind of check that off the list and continue with the modeling process. And I mentioned that I want to actually sew up the seams, meaning stitch them together in terms of mesh and merge the verts. And thankfully, there's a convenient way to do this. Tabbing back to edit mode, and we are on the basis shape, I'm going to hit 2 to go into edge select. And I want to select one of our stitch edges and then hit Shift G, which I don't have screencast keys on. Hate when I forget that. No, I do have it on. It's just not showing up. Must be because I switched modes. Let's see. There we go. Over to sculpt mode, we can see that. And where was I? I wanted to go to edit mode. All right, I've selected one stitch edge, and Shift G brings up our select similar menu. You can also find it up here. Select similar, and I want to choose amount of faces around an edge. All right, that will select all of our stitch edges only. And then I want to select our cloth shape key. And effectively, what we're going to do is scale each of these edges down using individual origins. Because in the armpit area, the seam didn't quite connect the way it did everywhere else. And this can be a mess to clean up unless we scale each of the stitch edges, hitting S and then 0. All right, this takes each vertex in the edge and puts them on top of each other. So if we jump over to vertex mode, I can hit the M key and merge by distance, and we remove 385 verts. So now our separate seams are all cleanly combined and stitched together in the sense of being a watertight mesh. Now, before I select anything different, I'm going to go to our vertex groups and hit the plus button, and I'm going to call this seams as a way to basically remember this selection. And we will assign all of those at a weight of 1. Now there's a problem with the normals. They're not all consistent. So I want to hit A to select everything and then Shift N, because I'm going to run a bevel operation and that needs to have consistent normals to work properly. Go to edge mode and then back to our vertex group and choose select. All right, very conveniently, all of our edges are selected, and I can hit Control B to run a bevel operation. All right, we're going to make that fairly small in relation to the overall model. I want there to be 2 segments. And then let's hit Control minus. All right, that will shrink the selection, which gives us access to the original seam. I'm going to hit Alt S to push that inward. Then I'm going to hit Control B again to bevel out another row of edges. And with that selected, Alt S one more time to kind of push it out, tighten that seam, and then Control plus to grow the selection one edge loop, and Alt S will push that out as well. Okay, now with that sequence done properly, if we re-enable our two modifiers, we have very believable stitched seams modeled in. And everything is watertight, so it's a proper model. And this prepares us to actually add some additional sculpting accents for the utmost realism and fidelity.